These days, people just stare because my mask doesn't hide the shape of my eyes. I've been here since March.
A hospital isn't exactly our church, but people find God here sometimes. So I thought I could too.
Overpopulation has led us to release the deadly virus known as COVID-19. Government officials and those of high priority status have been granted immunity and shall not be harmed.
My experience since COVID-19 started has been interesting.
Defendants often have to make the decision between paying money they don't have or giving up their freedom.
You don't expect something like COVID-19 to completely alter that for us.
Being trans has always been an afterthought for me, so now I want my film to put that into the forefront.
A black man died today.
My people have been dying every day since I was born. They existed even without a hashtag attached to their name.
Hello everyone, I'm Jasmine.
And I'm Mateo. And we'd like to welcome you to the Q&A portion of the 2020 DCTV Summer Media Intensive Screening. We hope you enjoyed all of the films. They were created by our youth filmmakers in quarantine over the past month. While students worked independently, they were guided via remote learning by their peers, as well as DCTV's professional filmmaking instructors, Kira Britt, Michael Brito, Jamal Hodge, Sushana Dubray, Paul Ann Rose, and Pedro Navarro.
The theme of this year's screening is the stories of now, which is especially important because of the unprecedented time that we are living in. All of these films were created in the safety and security of the filmmaker's home or outside while following social distancing guidelines. These are the topics that the students felt were important to document right now in this time that we will remember for the rest of our lives. In that spirit, this Q&A will function as a means for you to get all the clarity on how and why these students created the films that they did.
If you'd like to ask a question or share your experience, please use the Q&A panel, which should appear at the bottom of your screen. Our moderators will try to read all of them aloud. If you'd like to speak on screen, write on screen after your question, and we will activate your video and audio so you can ask yourself. Keep in mind that we are recording this and that it will be made available to the public.
So to begin, we open with a question for all of our filmmakers. Name one of the best parts or one of the hardest parts of making a film using remote learning.
One of the best parts for me was getting to go outside a lot more and not just being cooped up in my house.
To me, one of the best parts was getting to know my sister more, doing the interview and filming everything together.
Being able to find time to film while keeping my brother's schedules in mind as well.
Since a large portion of our project was filmed in person, a challenging aspect for us was adhering to pandemic-friendly safety guidelines, just to make sure that everybody felt really safe. But most importantly, people were comfortable and safe when we were shooting on set. Shout out to Mateo. Luckily, everyone in our team, including the actors, were very friendly, and everybody was very nice in keeping one another safe and protected. And yeah, we just adhered to any sort of inconveniences that we might have had as individuals. We just looked past that, pushed through it so that everybody felt safe.
For us, one of the hardest part is to, because we don't have access to outside, so while making our mini documentary, it was hard to get street interviews or interviews from outside.
As we wait for some more questions to come in, I kind of want to take Jacob's point and press it, but with a different group, Mateo and Athena. You guys had a very high-profile interview in your piece about the Fourth Amendment and screening of bags. You had the former director of the Department of Homeland Security, and I wanted to understand sort of your preparation process for that. I've been dying to know, how did you prepare for this interview, knowing that it was going to be someone so important who's had so much influence in this in the past? How do you prepare the content for that interview and prepare yourself for that moment?
Well, I know for myself, me and Athena were very prepared in terms of we had all of our we made a large list of questions, and then from there we narrowed it down to I think 5 questions. And before I even get going, I'd like to give a shout out to Daniel, who actually put us in contact with Jay Johnson for that interview. So I have to give a huge shout out to him before I even get into this. But yeah.
Daniel.
So we made a huge list of questions and then narrowed it down. And so from there on, we we asked him those 5 questions. That's what we wanted. And anything else we got from that interview was just greatly appreciated, because we didn't even think about having these answers and this information given to us. So we were just so grateful for that. And then mentally, I'd say, I know for me personally, I don't really get nervous when I meet super important people, just because I know that we're both human and we both feel the same way. We both bleed the same color. We're the same person, and the only way you can give them a perception of being bigger and more important is if you think they're more important before you meet them. And so I wasn't very nervous or anything before I met him.
I want to press you on that mental preparation a tiny bit more. All the interviews you've done in the past have been sort of in the studio or in a place where you can on the street where you can interact yourself and introduce yourself. But this is all done by Zoom. So how do you mentally prepare for a Zoom interview this high profile?
Well, it was just we went in there, we asked him, hey, can you just, before when you're talking, can you just look towards the camera, towards your camera and not the screen? We just kind of gave him the rundown of what we would want, what we need. And from there, he was very, he's just very accepting of what we asked. And he was very easy to work with and a great person all around. So it wasn't very difficult to work with him.
Yeah, from talking on behalf of both of us, I say that we were a bit nervous, but just looking at the work he's done, I was completely blown away by all the work he's done, and I just felt really honored to be able to speak with him and just to hear his stories and just hear his advice and all his amazing views.
So a question shifting a little bit from the documentary people, the fiction people, the narrative people had a much different obstacle to overcome, but they all were very, very successful in doing so. So my first question is for Michelle. You use cuts to create almost a teleporting effect from your character. What informed that choice of using the shots to demonstrate and allude to actual movement between locations?
I wanted to transfer movement from the object, and using the audience's focus on those objects, it would sort of change focus onto landscape rather than movement of a character.
Another question for another narrative filmmaker, Kristen. Why is your film in black and white? What were you hoping to illuminate when you changed to color?
Yeah, so my story was about a character who has divorced parents. I kind of wanted to symbolize both neighborhoods in black and white, since he's grown up in Queens and Chinatown throughout his whole childhood. But it's after Corona hit when he realizes, when he's traveling back and forth to both neighborhoods, that though he felt isolated in one neighborhood and has a community in another, both kind of shape his way as an identity as an Asian American. So I just wanted to show that the color is his realization of how appreciative he is of his identity and his growing up.
Speaking to identity, the reelers, there's a lot of different identity going on in your film. Two very, very different people coming together, not necessarily together, but involved in the same storyline because of this one event, this one topic. But with that, I was wondering, because you bring us into the Zoom call only for a second towards the beginning to establish the internet aspects of the two girls' interaction. But then you allow the actual real-world shots to tell the full story of these characters, which plays into how real social media can be and the effects that it has on real lives. How do you choose the angles that you used, and how did you want them to function to bring the emotion of the characters to life?
Initially, a lot of the angles were chosen just because we wanted to capture sort of a real view of how things would be shown through like a FaceTime, through Instagram, through just like a Zoom call, like a web chat, or however you want to interpret it. We just wanted to make sure that it felt true and realistic, because that really holds up well, I feel like, in our storyline. And capturing that was like an entirely different thing. And we wanted to initially start off with that just to make sure that people understood what was happening. And then from there, we definitely shifted on to just having that real-time camera angles, like with actual DSLRs, just because it felt a lot more personal and a lot more emotional, and that's definitely the line that we wanted to hit.
A question in the same vein from the audience that we received is, how can the momentum of the BLM protests be maintained? Can filmmakers such as yourself play a role in that? That's obviously a big question, but maybe the reeler can start us off, since the film is predominantly about BLM.
I would say that the first thing is to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter isn't just a movement, it's like a lifestyle. And secondly, also to realize that it's one thing to not be racist, but it's another thing to actively be anti-racist within your life. Like when you're an individual just like interacting with the world, like what you do is one thing, but how you also enforce change, I feel like that's how we continue the momentum.
Maria, I feel like this question can also be directed towards your film, because yours was centered around Black Lives Matter as well.
Yeah, so like the greatest change that I've seen, that like all across the board, is like everyone's talking about it now. And I think as long as we just keep actively, talking about it, and just having these uncomfortable conversations and seeing it all around us, the movement can continue. And like she said, like this can become a part of our lifestyle rather than just a movement.
We received another question from the audience in a similar vein. How do you think our current situation with social distancing changed your filmmaking during this time? Perhaps rerouting your focuses or style, perhaps for the better?
I can answer that question. So for my group, usually, like Jacob mentioned this, but usually we would probably be doing, at least we would try to like find an interview with like a lawyer, or do some like, man on the street interviews. I don't know what we do, but through the coronavirus, we had to become more resourceful, and by forcing ourselves through quarantining to become more resourceful, we actually explored, like, at least I explored something that I had not done before, like with the cutout animations. I had never experimented with that before, so having less freedom to like go outside and interview people sort of forced us to be more resourceful.
And Ram, I want to talk a little bit more about that with your group. Your group chose a variety of styles to animate your piece. That has like this more documentary, is like a documentary style piece. Like you have the Monopoly board, and then you have the cardboard cutouts, and then you have the Lego jail. What was your decision-making process behind using these different animation processes, and like which process would go for each sequence? That's open to Shania, Jacob, and you.
For the stop motion animation part, we mainly really planned out. We mainly had our narration written down, and then we storyboarded each scene and seeing how and which part should fit where. So for example, for the Lego overcrowding jail scene, we decided that it will be a much better representation visually if we use Legos to show like people like being overcrowded in a small space. Rather as other parts, we find it better to use cutouts like the Lady Justice in the conclusion.
To add on to that, looking Jacob and Rom's animations are just so amazing, and I was like so amazed by it every time I would see it. For my animation, I was like, I can't get it right. Like, how do they do it? It's so beautiful. Like, how? And it came to a moment where my instructor Shoshana was like, hey, you know, Mateo is really good at animations. Why? I think we should ask him to see, like, you know. And in my mind, I'm like, no, I have to do it. I have to be good, right? Like in your mind, you're thinking, you know, you have to get it right. And it took a speaking, you know, talking to realize, you know, filmmaking is all about collaboration, and especially during these times, you really have to work together. And if someone's good at one thing, you shouldn't be like, oh, well, I have to get better. I have to, you know, get to that point. It's about asking for help and saying, hey, I want to learn. Hey, I think you can bring my vision to life, and I would love to work together. So I say this to say, Mateo, where are you? Where are you, Mateo? Yeah, right there, Mateo. Mateo, while working on his project, he was able to bring this animation that I had in mind to life and execute it in such a way that was so beautiful. And I just want to say thank you, Mateo. Shout out to you. And also to all filmmakers, remember that it's all about working together, you know, and if you're not good at one thing, there's someone that will show you like, hey, this is how you do it, and you can gain empathy from it. You know, Shoshana really brought my eyes to it, and yes, so thank you. That's what I wanted to say about that.
That was a very, very nice answer. Now I have a question for Isai. The title of your film is very clever, as it demonstrates a transition from a pre-coronavirus world into your new reality around coronavirus, but also subtly nods to the transition of responsibility and adulthood and matriarchy from your grandfather to your mother, and how she is preparing for the transition from her to you to carry on the family legacy. Was this intentional in the name, or one of those beautiful accidents that comes with the art of creation?
Well, okay, one, I'll just say this in advance because you're going to hear it in the background. I apologize for the music. I don't know what they're doing outside, but it's just happening. But, okay, so it wasn't, I actually ended up getting help from my mother to kind of come up with the title because I was kind of struggling with like coming up with a title that would encompass like the actual purpose of my film. And like I knew I wanted to kind of note like the transition to like every new generation, being like my grandparents, the baby boomers, going to my mother, the Gen X, then going to me, the Gen Z. I just wanted to like find a title that would like focus on that. And my mother was I was with her and we were both kind of like brainstorming ideas. And she just told me that randomly out of nowhere that Corona in Spanish also means crown. And from there I knew like, okay, I already wanted to make my title like in Spanish already. So already hearing that, I was like, oh wait, that actually could really work out. And then so she also helped me come up with like the transition of the crown. And so from there I was able to kind of like translate into Spanish and make it the actual title of my film. So it also it really helped to have her also kind of do that for me as well. Not do that for me, but kind of helped to have her work with me to like come up with that title. And it makes sense too because I like the fact that she was still able to also add that other final touch to my film, where she also helps me put the crown on top of my film to kind of finalize everything and make it the final piece that you saw. So yeah.
We got another question from the audience here, this time directed at Jessica. Question for Jessica. I like how your film tells us that you're feeling after the doctor called. what you want in the future, thinking you won't survive the virus, but the moral message is you are going to be okay in the end. How did it make you feel thinking and talking about activities that you would do?
I think that it taught me, because in the cusp of any change, everyone is really scared. Especially, this is really prevalent now because of coronavirus, but also like I'm going to be a senior next year. I'm going to college and I'm feeling anxious about that. But because I've gone through this already, going through change and knowing that, okay, so this happened to me, but am I going to be okay? And then realizing that no matter what, I am going to be okay. And what I am, who I am, and how I present myself is more important than like any fears or doubts that I may have. So it really taught me that no matter what happens, you have to stay true to yourself. You have to push through any obstacles that you may have encountered. And I think that's that lesson, because I was faced with this at such a young age. It has really, like, I carry that with me, I think. Well, I try to carry that with me. And I think that's the best we can all do.
I wanted to ask you a little bit further about like sort of that process and like talking about your own life. Like, what's it like sharing a story that's so personal to you?
Well, at first I wanted to make this entirely fictional. When I pitched this in the start, I was like, this is going to be an entirely fictional piece, and I might be based on my experience of having an autoimmune disease, but it's like totally removed from me. And when I pitched this, I was like, I'm going to name the character Jane, or I'm going to call it the main character. I didn't say my name because I didn't want to. I think I was really scared to make it so personal and to present, like, to just like bare myself, I think. But then Kira, my instructor, she was like, Jessica, the most powerful thing you could ever do is be really personal in your film and to put yourself fully in the film. And it was really hard, but when I see, I think right now I'm just really proud that I was able to push through my fears, which goes back to what I said in the beginning. But I was just really proud of myself. I'm really proud of the things I made.
Yeah, absolutely amazing job. I was really, really blown away.
I cried, 100% cried. That was so beautiful, so beautiful. The voiceover especially made me cry. So I have a question for Isabella. First question is, was this your first film? And if so, fabulous job. And I absolutely loved so many aspects of your film, but one in particular stuck out to me. What did you have in mind with the shots of the inn looking out the window? Is this meant as some sort of reflection?
Yes, like that's my first film, and the window shot was like to reflect, like to give a meaning to like her being at home, the character of the film, like she being at home alone, because she's 12 years old. She has this memory of what happened in the past and everything that is going on, making her feel uncomfortable. At the same time, like her showing, like feeling that I want to be out there. I want like everything to go back to normal, how things be going. So during this thoughts, like she being at the window, like bring back everything that she want to be out there. But because of this, she can't, and she can only put herself in the room and just watch everything that is going out there through the window.
And then what was it like working on your first movie like this?
It was a great experience, because at first I was like, how am I going to put all these ideas into part, especially the editing part? Like, this is my first movie. How am I going to edit? How am I going to bring all these pieces together and like present my idea? But as I was going on, I was learning new things, and based on other experience, like what this one's famous, like this one kind of give me inspiration on how to put everything together. So I think it was really a great experience, and I would like to do another film.
Show of hands, who created their first film this summer? Wow. So for all of you guys, What was that experience like to create your first film remotely, you know, instead of in person?
I think for me, it was just something totally new that I haven't done before. And like prior to this, I probably couldn't even like see myself making a film if I wasn't in this program. Like that's not something I would just think of doing like for fun or just for no reason. But after this, like it really opened my eyes to like a whole new world of like art and creativity. And we started today with everyone's movie. It was so different and so creative. And everyone put a lot of work into it. And I think it's opened my eyes to just like a whole new world of art.
For me, making a film for the first time, I was in the DCTV program for the last, before Corona all started and stuff, but we didn't get to finish a movie because of Corona. So finally being able to make a film this time, I felt really satisfied with the work, and I felt really satisfied in how it came out. And although there were mistakes, it's something for me to learn for the next time I apply for DCTV or the next to make a film in general. This is an experience for me, and honestly, I think it was great.
We have an audience question here for James. James, why did you choose to have your film devoid of images of people interacting, although you can hear them in audio?
Well, I really just wanted to focus not more on the people, but more on the actual lots and the greenery. But the reason why you could hear them but not see them, I guess, except for the person on the bike. It's really, sorry, I'm nervous.
I know that when you were doing it, James, you were really focused on the idea of these lots and how they have their own story that gets surpassed by like everybody walking by. And I remember that it was something that you wanted to tap into while creating this film. And then along the process, one of the other instructors, Jesse, said you can play with the sound and how like these moments and these sounds used to exist in these soundscapes. But now these places are a lack of sound, and all we hear are like wind rustling or birds, and you created that world. Am I right?
Yeah. I guess it's just because it's sort of what the lots could be, or like what they could be instead of being lots, or I don't know how to explain it.
I think you said that really well. It's like the idealistic version of what those lots could be if
yeah.
was a little bit tampering, right? Very cool. I like that a lot.
You did a very good job.
Okay, now a question for the birthday boy. Happy birthday, Liam.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
So Liam, you are very intentional with world building throughout your film. You know, very similar to James in that you are kind of devoid of people. I mean, you have this mannequin person and the feet of a person, but no real people. But the world that you build in that for your mannequin man is so intricate and beautiful. You established how all of these different normal items work differently in the world of the mannequin, which I especially loved. I especially love the scene with the mannequin using the pot on the stove as a hot tub. But what was it difficult to find inventive ways to establish the world that you were building without falling into cliches?
Yeah, I think one big problem with, or one like thing that I had to overcome with my world building was not so much as cliches, but deciding what would make sense to put in and what wouldn't make sense to put in, and like the justification of what works in his world. Because like the items that my figurine uses, we all like recognize in like our daily lives. So I think like for me, it was like hard for me to like find ways in my film to justify how my figurine was using these things. And I think like also a big part of it was like just figuring out like the simpler like simpler items that like, you know, that would make sense if, you know, yeah.
Our next question here is for Rashid. Something that really stuck out to me immediately when watching the movie was just how beautiful the cinematography was. What came to you first when you were making this movie? Did like the stories come up first or the visuals, like chicken and the egg here? Did you build your story around the visuals that you had in your head, or you let the story kind of like guide what you showed on screen?
It was kind of a mix of both things, but mostly I had the story in my head first. I kind of had like the basic concepts of what I wanted to do written, and I had a storyboard of what the images I wanted to do. But there were definitely a lot of other images that were done as I was filming that came out, like the plasma balls shot that was not originally intended. And throughout the filming, there were also like changes to the story as well as it went through, and I developed more and I gave it like more layers to it. But I will say most of the shots were usually pre-planned. There was a lot of experimenting too, but that wasn't, most of that wasn't actually used in the film. So I would say most of the story was pre-planned and written. I cannot really do much well with experimenting only. I have to have like structure to it first.
Now I have a question for Aiden. What was working with your family like in this piece? Is there anything you learned by exploring the dynamics of your own household?
Well, honestly, like it really revolved around whether or not like the family members were tired or not, and like if their schedules were available. And honestly, like I didn't really learn anything new about them because we are a pretty social family. So yeah, we talk regularly at dinner. So
did you notice anything about like the way they approach the camera differently anyway, that since you spent so much time with them in real life, like what was it like filming them? Did anything new come out that you noticed?
Well, no, not really.
So we got a pretty good idea of what it's like then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
So Aiden, there is a question for you from the audience in the Q&A section. It says, Aiden, I like how you approach long distance learning with your brother and his opinions on the matter. What do you think about long distance learning?
I have a mixed feeling about it. I mean, like I think like in my experience, it's easier on online school than live school, but you learn less in live school. So honestly, like it really depends on like what type of person you are. Like if you're more laid back, or like if you like want a better education.
That was great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you shared with us. Our next question here is for Daniel. We really wanted to know, like, you know, the narrative is so important to this piece because it has such a rich meta-narrative. And we really wanted to know, how did you get older actors to participate in your films? Like, what methods did you use for casting and getting the best performance out of them in the moment?
Well, it took me a while because I had a lot of different ideas, and I think one of the problems that I had at the beginning was finding an idea that I could make work. And one of the things that I looked for inspiration with this piece was The Purge, and that's kind of the announcement that you hear for part of the piece. And in the different movies of The Purge, a lot of the older actors play a big role in guiding the story. And so the two actors that were in my piece, one was my dad, another was a family friend, and they both have acting experience, and I just thought, with that experience, they would be perfect for those roles.
So Jacob, there's a question in the chat directed at your group. It's really interesting for me, the system and racism. I didn't know it. Why are you interested in the issue? How do you think you young filmmakers influence or change it?
So I think it's important because a lot of people, especially maybe young people, they don't really fully know their rights. And I believe that it's important to bring out some of, it's important to bring to light some of these problems, like how our group chose the 8th Amendment, and the other group that's with us, with Shoshana, chose another amendment. And we just think that it's important because the cash bail system is really something that keeps the poor locked up, and it's really like a get out of jail free card for the rich. And we think that we can potentially change it by bringing awareness to people using video.
And just to add on what Jacob said, highlighting these stories and how it can happen. It could happen to anyone. It could happen to any one of us right now, and it's scary. And and to add on to Jacob's point, knowing what your rights and knowing what's going on in the system, that's important. Knowing these people's stories, that's important, because ultimately these are the stories that can possibly be you and many others, and it's what's going on right now. So to highlight the voices of others, that's been through that. So yeah.
Yeah. Additionally, to add on to all of that, I think the awareness is extremely important, and also an area in which we awareness to go to is, maybe it's a stretch because it's just a student film, but the idea at least is that this could possibly create enough awareness that it might push some legislation or something like that to change the bail system. So yeah, I think that the awareness that people know that this is a problem is good, and then hopefully out of people knowing that this is a problem, hopefully there will be some judicial change.
So kind of in the same line of questioning, so many of the films here are about various social issues, and at a time when there is no shortage of social issues to talk about and things that we want change in, I think we wanted to ask the filmmakers here, how did you choose what topic or meta-narrative was going to be reflected in your film, the big issue that's going to be reflected in your film, of the larger society, that how did you land on this issue for your film? Because there's a lot to choose from these days. I guess we should start with the reelers, because there's a lot to unpack there.
You should say something too.
I can go ahead. I feel like at the beginning of the process, we were definitely very focused on what's impacting us, and I think a big part of our process here was to say what are the things we're going through right now, because everybody's going through something these days, and how do we kind of translate the themes of what we're experiencing? So not directly the negative experiences we're experiencing, but the themes and the emotions we're feeling into a broader picture, into what's going on in the larger society, to create something that's very personal to us and has a lot of envelops a lot of what we're feeling these days in our experience, but in this narrative that is about something much, much bigger than just ourselves, and trying to tell a personal story but really attach it to things that we care about in this sense. And I think that's how we landed on the issues of betrayal and Black Lives Matter, because we're feeling a lot of these things. We're feeling a struggle. We're feeling, in some places we're feeling used, in some places we're feeling underappreciated, and really I think those themes kind of translated well into this issue for us in the film.
May I ask a question to the reelers? All right. So I feel like your story, a lot of it, like, to me, it resembled something that I think a lot of people can relate to. I was wondering if that story, maybe not that exact specific story, but that story of like performative activism that isn't really real, if anybody from the Realers group experienced that, and if that like was what inspired.
Personal experience, I think when we got together at the beginning of the summer of the program, that was like one of the main topics that we were discussing. We weren't even talking about the film, we were just talking about what we were doing during quarantine and how we were feeling, and a lot of our experiences were the same, that we felt like a lot of people were putting on a show through social media, and that could be on Facebook, Instagram. So what we wanted to do was just show everybody, just like a mirror of how certain people can act like they care about movement, but not actually be about the cause. And that's important for this day and age, because a lot of times we forget that certain people put on a show, and then we end up supporting those groups of people and not actually putting our attention towards the groups that are actually supporting, the groups that are out there fighting for our rights, our causes. So this is just something that we felt was important for everyone to see, that just because someone is posting online that they're doing something doesn't necessarily mean that they're about it. So we just wanted to point that out so that people are not like confused. Like, just everyone on Instagram these days is about Black Lives Matter. So it's, yeah, that was basically the film that we wanted to tell.
Yeah, to add on to what Maria Nelia said, one other example besides the film that we made, if anyone remembers like the black squares that was posted all over social media, and then people also included like the hashtag Black Lives Matter, what that did was erase tons of work that activists and revolutionaries put into that hashtag just in one moment, because people wanted the glory, that momentary glory, instead of like actual change. So thinking deeper about what you're doing is basically the message that we're trying to get across, and not just like, I don't know, you can start a YouTube if you want that attention, but don't get in the way of movements, you know?
And then, yeah, in the script writing process, sort of like talking about developing the performative activism, like I was really involved in that process. I felt that many of the things Ella says, I kind of like based off of mistakes I've made in the past, in like ways that I feel like I've grown listening to activists in this movement, and misconceptions I used to have. I know people that were close to me used to have, like the idea that like just voting an election is going to get rid of police brutality. You know, these are ideas that like, you know, I know people have because I used to have them, and I spend a lot of time with people that used to have them. And so to me, it was like about like not only reflecting what I see bad in others, but like experiences I've had myself and growing from them, and trying to reflect those moments of growth in a character.
So a question for Liam. What was the inspiration behind your film?
Like a big inspiration about my film was, I feel like even before the quarantine, I feel like a lot, at least I have always wanted to like be somewhere else besides like where I am, like in the moment. And I feel like that's kind of part of it, is like we like a lot of times look past like where we are in the moment and kind of like try to be somewhere else. And that was kind of like my idea through like, you know, looking at the computer screens and magazines and like wishing you were there instead of somewhere else. And yeah, I think like a lot of it did have to do with like, you know, me being tired of just being at home a lot of the time. But also I feel like I felt that way even before the quarantine, especially like through like social media and like, you know, just like digital mediums or anything like that. You always see like better places and where you are, and you're kind of jealous or something like that.
So now a question for our lovely instructors. Why do you teach? Why do you bring your time and your talents to DCTV? And do you have a message for the students? Jamal, why don't we start with you?
Why me? No, I'm joking. Why do I teach? I teach because I like I said in the video, I wasn't the best kid growing up. I was kind of a knucklehead. I was a knucklehead. And, I got into all types of mischief and crazy things, but I feel like so many people honestly at DCTV, John Keiko, so many people invested in me, Tatiana, over the years and really gave me an opportunity. So I feel like it's my duty to take what was given to me and then pass it on to you guys and to other young people so that one day you can potentially pass that on to somebody else younger or less fortunate than yourself as well. And just to keep the chain going. I think that's how, like, in small increments, we make the world a better place. So that's why I teach. I think it's like my way of trying to make the world a better place.
I agree with Jamal. I feel like he said something similar to what I was going to say. I also went to DCTV as a student as well in high school, and I feel like it just made sense to give back in this way because I love teaching, and it also gives me the ability to do multiple types of art because I also work in theater outside of teaching in film, which also breeds a whole new aspect of like how to teach the students. And it also gives them a new insight into other areas of filmmaking that may not be taught so like prevalently in the program of Pro TV. Because I know for the narrative students, I really get involved when they like to do prop stuff and when they do scene stuff or like just storyboarding. That is my jam. So it's always really fun to be a part of the group that is Pro TV, and I've never regretted it.
I'll speak. Like, I don't want to, can you guys even see me? It's kind of dark. I feel the same way. Like, I am also an alumni of the DCTV Pro TV program. And just throughout my whole schooling life, whether it was after schools or at DCTV, teachers have just been like some of the biggest supports. They were the people who helped to encourage me and push me in all my arts. So it just feels like it's like a necessity to turn around and give back. Like, you have to be an inspiration just because people are inspiring to you. So yeah, that's why I teach, just get involved in any way that I possibly can.
What everybody said about giving back is amazing. That's true. I believe in giving back also, but I also believe that young people's voices should be heard. And I also feel like, especially young people of color, I think that it's great that they are in charge of their narratives, and it's great that they control and understand what the narrative is. And that's why I just love doing this work. And I also like DCTV because it brings together different young people from all over the city that usually in other spaces probably wouldn't even work together or speak to each other. So I also like the idea that DCTV brings all types of people together, and they wind up working and creating things that you got to see today. And that's why I do what I do.
Well, I guess I will have to talk. I think I was very lucky, and I had great teachers. And then you really feel that you really have to give something in return. When you have great teachers, you have to give something to the next generation. And also there is an expression in Cuba saying, when you become a teacher, you become a creator, because you are helping to give shape to the next generation. You are helping to create the next generation. And in this world we are living nowadays, that you are so involved with this new relation with the screens, yeah. I deeply believe it's very important to learn more about like understanding and having a healthy relation with media, and all the process about like media literacy. It's vital. even for humankind right now. So I feel very happy to be part of this crew. And congratulations for all the kids. Like just carry on, never stop.
I basically support everything that everyone else said, so I basically feel like I have not much to add, but I know for me, DCTV was very instrumental. I came from an immigrant household where there was not many options in terms of like the creative world or pursuing anything creative. Like it was either like a doctor, nurse, lawyer, So I realized how how instrumental it was for me to go to DCTV and to be exposed to this whole world that I knew nothing about that ended up being a large part of me, since I was 15. So I think that it's cool to, just be around kids, coming from immigrant parents, born and raised in Brooklyn. Like, it's just a way for young people to ask questions and, for us to be able to keep it real with you guys about what the real world is like once you are no longer a teenager. But it's always fun, and I feel like that you guys keep us connected and grounded, and I enjoy watching you guys grow. It just really, every time I teach a class, like I see little bits of myself when I was your age. So it's just always exciting, and it keeps me feeling young. So, so that's why I feel like I enjoy teaching.
Well, I want to thank everybody. I think this was one of the most impressive exhibitions that I've ever seen. The skill that you guys have exhibited, the passion that the teachers have passed on to you. I'm in awe of the teachers and what they've helped you accomplish. It's really great. Nothing's going to make me feel young, but it's really nice to see the torch being passed so effectively to the next generation of filmmakers. You guys have a lot to say. You said a lot today, and I know you have more to come. I want to thank everybody. You guys did a great, great, great job.
Thank you, John.
I am so proud of everyone here. I think you guys all did an amazing job. And think about this. You made 16 films in 4 weeks. Okay, so you need to give yourself a round of applause. And it's just amazing work. And this really is an example of how your passion drove you to finish these projects. When you were in doubt, that passion drove you. And what a force. The media instructors, you guys are amazing. And just all around, I feel so fortunate and thankful to be a part of this experience. I just want to thank everyone.
Thanks, Jesse. That's so sweet.
I echo everything that Jesse said, and not to sound like a broken record, but we are absolutely, definitely proud of you all and what you've done, and you definitely inspire us every day. We love working with you for all 20 days. This was different. We didn't expect to work this way. We love being in the firehouse, but you all made this an amazing experience. And growth is so important, and transformation. And in 20 days, there was transformation for you professionally, personally, in all sorts of ways. And I really hope that you take everything that you've learned from this experience and just continue to build off of it, because this is one stop on your journey. It is not the end. So keep going and keep pushing, and know that we are here always to support you. Just because you leave doesn't mean you can get away from us.
We're not going to leave. We're not going to leave.
So we got you. We support you. And we thank you for being so honest and open and sharing your stories, because that is important. We empower one another when we share our experiences. So thank you for taking the time to share those experiences. It means a lot to us. We know it's going to mean a lot to people all over the world, because that's where your films are going to go. And just keep doing your thing.
I want to say thank you to all the young filmmakers. I appreciate all of you guys. You guys really inspired me. You inspired the DCTV staff and family with your courageousness to open up and tell your stories and being honest. And I know we pushed a lot remotely, and it's just inspiring to see all this. Again, I'm happy to see that we made 16 films. I'm sad because it wasn't in front of a live audience, but I promise you this, once we get back to that firehouse, we're going to have a live audience screen of all this work because I think it's important for you guys to experience that. And again, I'm really proud of you guys for opening up and being honest and joining us this summer because it took a lot of guts in what you guys did. And I also want to thank all the teachers. Without the teachers, we wouldn't be here. So thanks, guys, for helping us to improve our remote learning. I mean, it's amazing what we did in 20 days. We did phenomenal work. I mean, if we were in the firehouse, we would have only made 5 movies. Because of remote learning and because we were passionate enough, we made 16 films, 16 extraordinary films. So make sure when you tell people I'm a filmmaker, you're not dabbling in this. You're telling stories that matter, that are important to us at this moment. So carry that torch forward. Give it to someone else. I'm really proud of you guys. You guys have been one of the best groups I've been teaching in 17 years. So I really appreciate that. So hats off to you guys. Hopefully we'll see you in the fall. I'm gonna be sending you an email tomorrow morning. So please respond if you want to join us in the fall. I would love to have you guys in the fall. So thank you guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.